If you watched my videos, I'm sure you've noticed me shout out Descolada string library. It's very useful and brings in the expected behavior of strings into AHK, stuff like methods to strings, which is something that exists in other languages but doesn't in AHK. Well, I like that library so much that I actually kidnapped Descolada today, and I have it with me. Descolada, introduce yourself.
Hi guys, I'm Descolada, and I'm here today to talk about the UIA library for AHK V2. So, what is UIA? It's UI automation, which is a framework or library developed by Microsoft for blind people.
And
And
today, we are the blind people.
yeah, so for blind people, because they need to have screen readers which read the text off screen. So the screen reader needs to see what is going on the screen. And then Microsoft decided that, hey, let's add user interface testing capabilities also to that framework. And then we got UI automation. And we're gonna take a look at it today.
Yep. So, UOA is a library, naturally, so you can include it. But if you run it as a script, you get this nice UOA viewer, which is actually all we need to get the information to make something work. So, uh, first we'll start with an example to press this exact button. It's very, very simple. You start capturing, move your cursor onto the element that you want to catch, give it time to construct the tree, and okay, it constructed the tree. You'll actually see a tree of, first of all, the window and all the elements that go into it. And the element that you caught will be highlighted in gray. At least for me, it's highlighted in gray. But even easier is the fact that you can just choose the action that you want to make with that element, then click Add Element, and here you go, you have the code. Naturally already copied it and made it so it first highlights and then clicks. Coming back to the Explorer, let's try this out. It highlights and then clicks that button, which is
Wow.
beautiful.
So shall we go over what exactly happened here?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So please open your VS Code window with the code.
Mm-hmm.
And we can see that the first line is UIA.element from handle. So the UIA is the class name for UIA, which is used to access all the starting methods. So you need to start from somewhere, right?
Yeah.
In this case, we are starting from a window element. If we wanted to, we could also get an element from point or get focused element, which would
What
get the
is
currently
element from point
focused
though?
element from the screen. Element from point gets either the element under the cursor or it gets from it gets it from a specified point. So you can put any like 100 and 200 for x and y coordinates, and then it gets a element from that point. But yeah, in this case, we are using element from handle,
And it's
which
very
get
simple. It just takes a win title, just like many things in HK do. So if you use the HK for some time, you know how to get a win title. So that's pretty easy. And we end up
exactly. It
with
uses
with an UIA
the
element of the entire window.
win title like in win exist.
Yes. Uh,
Yeah,
but
this
but then we have some auto-generative code which you will
the
naturally will
element.
not be able to write yourself. So let's show off how to write your own code rather than just take auto-generated code.
Good idea. Let's take a look at your um, Spotify example.
That's perfect. So I had one issue with Spotify, or rather, something that was not perfect. Um, I had a hotkey that opens the context menu. Once eventually Spotify loads, perfect. So currently, say I'm listening to a track and it's a banger. So I want to right click, add to playlist to best. A playlist that contains all of my bangers, naturally. Uh, so doing it without UA was not really viable, but with UA I've been able to make it. So let's get to my method get context menu. First of all, what are the actions that I want to do? Uh, Essentially, right click here, so we get that menu. Then we click add to playlist. Then we click best. So what's happening here? Once again, we're using element from handle to get the YoYa object instantiated so we can use it later. Then we use find element. But how do we get the information to actually get it? Let's go back to Spotify and UI a viewer. Start capturing. In this case, I want this. Or rather, let's actually catch add to playlist immediately. It constructs the tree. Okay, we got it. So let's scroll and find the actual thing that I'm looking for. As you can see, Spotify is a huge ass window, so it can take some time to load it all. And eventually we will find what we're looking for.
So essentially, the crux of the issue is that you are starting from the window element, and then you see that we have some child elements underneath the window, and then the children also have children of their own, and resulting tree is very big. So if you want to move inside the tree to get an element of interest, in this case, your song name element or the menu element, then we want to limit the search as much as possible.
Yes,
And in your example, we could see that you used both the element type. It was first type document, and you had specified scope children.
but
So
we'll
this
get to that.
essentially,
The reason why we need to narrow down our search so much is because if we try to specifically search for best, you can see this huge ass tree. It would have to go through all of those to eventually find best, which would take a lot of time and the script would be slow. But if first we find the document, meaning the window, essentially, since Spotify, along with most apps that you use day by day, are browsers, essentially. So, document, then this menu, then add to playlist, and then best, rather than trying to find best immediately. So, that's exactly what we're
exactly.
doing in code. First, we need to find the element of document. And having a look at the tree, indeed, that is the first thing that we come across. So, can you talk about scope and why it's important to keep it in mind?
So if our element is very deep inside the tree or very at the end of the tree, then the search might take very long because by default, find element goes through all the children and the children of the children. So in this case, the tree is very big and the search would take very long. So we want to limit the search as much as possible. In
Mm-hmm.
this case, we are specifying the scope
Hold on,
children,
Descolada,
which
it's hard to hear you. Your sound is choppy. Can you talk again?
Sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yep,
Can
perfect.
you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Hello. Okay. Um, so in this case, we are using scope children, which means that find element is only looking at the direct children of the element we are starting from. And we are
To show
starting
that
from
off,
the window element in this case.
to show that off in a more visual sense. So we start at pane, essentially, we start at the highest element, and now we need to find document because the menu thing, this thing, was in document, as most things are. So we need to find the document. And now we're limiting the search up to only the direct children. Right now, it only needs to search through these 5 things rather than all of that entirety. So, by putting the scope of children or 2, they're the same, we limit the search massively, improving speed. Well, in this case, document is the first ever thing, so it wouldn't matter, but it's a good thing to keep in mind when you're trying to look for speed.
Yeah,
Then wait
exactly.
element. What
So
can you say about
weight element is exactly what it sounds like. It waits for the element to appear, and the element has to match the criteria you have given. So in
Mm-hmm.
this case, you are waiting for a menu type element, and the scope of the search is again children. So it's only waiting for an element inside the direct children.
Mm-hmm. So that menu should be somewhere here. Basically, now that we found the element of the document, and the reason why we use find element instead of wait element is if the window exists, then document is definitely there. But this context menu might not be there, so we need to wait for it to access it. And that's where wait element is very useful.
This is because UIA cannot see elements that don't yet exist on the screen. It can only interact with stuff that is visible on the screen.
Indeed.
So wait element might be used a lot with UIA.
Yes, so we specified that menu type, but how do we even get it? So let's search for add to playlist first. It's constructing the tree, which once again is pretty huge. And here it is, add to playlist. We want to find this menu first to limit down our search. And here we have properties, which is the important thing. We specified type in our code. That's a cute rectangle. So we specified the type, but what if that's not enough? In that case, you can also specify the other values that you have for it. So for example, localized type, I guess, right?
Or name.
Or name, yes. In this case, there is no name, so we can use localized type to specify menu as well.
Yes.
Remember the commas, naturally. Great, it disappeared. But that element of the menu could also have a name, in which case you do name and then, well, the name. And sometimes there won't be enough to just have one thing specified, so you might need to specify multiple. Just like in win titles, by the way, you specify like the actual win title, then AHK exe, maybe AHK group, AHK class. What? Who even uses that? But maybe you do. Same idea in finding and waiting for elements. And once we found what we need to, we can do an action. So it could be highlight, which is that box that's jumping around when you're trying to find the element, Or the most useful one is obviously click, to click on that. Okay. But
and if you want, you can test out some of the methods inside the UIA viewer as well. So once you have selected the element of interest in the UIA tree, when you click on it and it highlights blue, then on the left side there are the patterns. So in UIA, an element is described by two things. First, it's the properties. So for this, we have the name, type, location, etc. And then there are the patterns, which describe some specific ways of interacting with the element. So in this case, for example, we have, I think we have the selection item or select somewhere. If you scroll down,
we have scroll item, text child, legacy I accessible, and invoke.
yeah. So we can use, for example, the invoke. If you double click the invoke with the parentheses, then it will try to invoke it. That means click it. In this case, I think it's already clicked, so it doesn't do anything.
Yeah.
But
But that information is a bit more complex. It's just needed to be explained so you know where to go off from. So here we found this whole menu, and now we get an object of this menu that we can use for anything else. So maybe I create more functions that maybe add to queue, like remove from this playlist, so on. So we have the object of this entire menu. Great, now let's go to add to playlist, the actual meat and potatoes of this whole thing. We regain the song menu by using the previous method that we just looked at, and continue finding and waiting for elements. Now we need to find element of add to playlist. Let's boot up our UIA viewer and start capturing, but now for add to playlist. So essentially you capture things one after another to get the needed information. And here you have name add to playlist. Matter of fact, you can right click on it to copy that value to then paste it into your script. So here I specified the name, add to playlist. Great, we found that element of add to playlist, and once we do, we have this menu where we find, or rather we wait element, because it still takes time for that window to appear, of the name of the playlist that I specified, in this case best. So let me remove the highlights and run this, and then you'll see how fast this thing actually is. Okay, I reloaded the script. Let's start playing the track. Because of how my hotkey works, that doesn't matter. And let's add it to best. That was almost immediate, and as you can see, it just appeared there. But that was a bit too fast, so let's bring back the highlights, reload the script so you can see what's actually happening. Let's do it again. Hotkey finds the menu, finds add to playlist, clicks on it, finds best, and clicks on best. So that is the idea that you can use to do pretty much anything. This idea spreads to other things you could do with UIA as well.
Axel, why didn't you use regular AHKey to do this? Why did you have to use UIA?
Because I fucking can't use regular AHK for this. There's no such behavior. If maybe you read the docs and they lie to you about HK_class being useful, you know that pain of no, this isn't really a thing that you can do. But with this library, you have all the power to do pretty much anything that you want.
Yeah,
So,
so
is there anything else
Spotify,
that we need to explain in our beginning tutorial?
I think that's about covers it
Hmm.
for now. There's a there's much more to learn. Uh,
Yes.
and if you want to read more information about it, then on the main GitHub page for this library, there's also the wiki page, which explains how most of the methods shown here work.
Yep. In this video, we just wanted to have some beginning because that's already very much enough to do amazing things. And then you can discover more and more stuff via the amazing documentation, I'm sure, that Descolada wrote. And naturally, you can find a link to that GitHub repo in the description. So, if you enjoyed this video, press a like, type some comment, maybe you have a question or suggestion. Definitely subscribe so you don't miss my content, but most importantly, stay fresh, cheese bags! And I'll see you in my next video. Bye bye!